in the negative, because the present state of man is the result of Satan successfully pulling us into a war that was between him and God.
All right. Yes, yes.
To be mentioned, the dispensation of innocence, consciousness, human government, promise, law, grace, and then of course, there is divine judgment, divine government. The first dispensation, and I got some work to do here tonight, it was the dispensation of innocence. Because Adam and Eve are in the garden of God, Eden, utopia, which means everything in the garden is beautiful, suitable, and in place.
Come on.
It was the literal paradise of God in the earth. And Adam and Eve were innocent. They were so innocent that they did not know the nature of the animals in the garden with them. Neither did the animals know the nature of Adam and Eve. They were so innocent that they were parading in the garden naked and didn't even know they were naked.
Wow. Yes.
And so the first dispensation is the dispensation of innocence. And it is a time from the creation of man wherewith he is actually in the dimwuf, the tislam, the image and the likeness of God, the total design of God. And he is not contrary to God. But Satan is defeated according to Revelation chapter number 12. He is cast out of heaven into the earth, and immediately he goes after the seed of the woman, pulling Adam and Eve into a conflict that existed between him and God. And so it was a time where man experienced material tranquility and peace, and the peace was the peace of God. Funny, it only lasted 3 days, because when Satan fell, he raised hell in the Garden of Eden. And so now the dispensation, it switches and it moves from innocence to consciousness. And consciousness is where man is now looking at God and the Word of God, evaluating God, investigating God, and making his own conscious decisions about God. He is no longer innocent, he is now conscious. And he is subjected to this dispensation for 1656 years before he moves from the dispensation of consciousness into the dispensation of human government. So now he's not only conscious, but he's saying to God, I can run the world by myself. I know how to do it. I'm sophisticated, I am intellectual, and I have within me the capacity to make the world turn. And so God recognizes the ignorance of man and decides to help them govern themselves. He allows Noah and his sons to live and to repopulate the earth, to use animals for food, and he establishes the law of capital punishment in Genesis chapter number 8. However, Noah's sons failed, and the Tower of Babel was erected, and for 427 years the government of man continued to decline. At the declining of the government, the dispensation of human government, has to move man into the next dispensation, which is the dispensation of promise. God turns again to man for 430 years because he has now obligated himself to man to guarantee that man would move into a path to stay connected to God. And so what he does is he binds himself through the seed of Abraham, and he testified of the coming seed in the woman that would restore man back to his original status. And because he made this promise, he is now obligated to fulfill it. So he shifts them from the dispensation of promise to the dispensation of law. Now Moses is again the interviewed, and he establishes within the dispensation of law rules. And these rules would govern the psychology, the consciousness of man. God establishes this kind of balance, a line of demarcation. You've now got law. And law created rules, and to break the rule would be a consequence. It was about 1718 years that man was subject to the law. But the law brought death because the law ministered to me on the basis of religion, which is good. It ministered to me on the basis of